Welcome to a new episode of TTG Conversations 5 Questions video series. I'm Karen Yu, Group Editor of TTG Asia Media. In this episode, we'll look into the silver tourism segment, which seems to be a bit neglected in the travel and tourism landscape. And taking us through this topic is Preeti Sanjeevi, CEO and co-founder of Great. Great is a company that's on a mission to power purposeful and passionate lives for travelers aged over 50 by using experts, AI, and data. Hello, Preeti, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Karen. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much, TTG, for having us here.
Okay, I've got 5 questions for you, and here's the first. Now, Great was launched last year, I remember, when you saw a gap in the market for travel services catering to travelers aged 50 and up. What were some of those glaring gaps that triggered you?
I think there were gaps in two areas. First is when we looked around at not necessarily the travel market, but in the process of discovery of travel, we realized that for a free and independent traveler, whether they are aged 50 or not, and all the platforms that typically we would go to use, whether it's OTA platforms, inspirational platforms, they tended to bucket people into a few groups. So you would see a lot of choices to be made around whether you are a couple who's traveling, or you're a young solo traveler, or if you're a family with kids, for example. You would even have options of saying, I'm traveling with a spouse or with friends. But we didn't see an option to say I'm a certain life stage and I am traveling either alone or with family or with friends, right? The second thing that happens is most platforms and travel discovery channels today jump from there to, do you need accessibility of the wheelchair kind? Now, the gap we saw, therefore, is that between being a young family and a wheelchair need, there is a world that exists, right? That is the 50 to 75-year-old traveler who today is very mobile, very independent, certainly not in the wheelchair accessibility category, but is also very different in what they need, what they want, what they prefer from, say, someone who's an under 40s traveler. So that very large universe, which seems not seen, uncatered for, is the gap that we saw. With that also came a realization that therefore anything that's out there is built to be one size fits all. Whether it is in the way people can search and find inspiration or choices of travel, or in understanding how applicable some of those choices are for them and their needs, at a different life stage. So I think that is what drove us to say, what if we could change that status quo, right? What if we could change that in a way where a 50-year-old, a 55-year-old, a 65-year-old traveler can put some of not just their needs, but their preferences and choices upfront in the discovery process, so that everything they see from there is truly sort of relevant to what they want in a travel experience, whether it's a hotel or the sites that they're going to see, or any sort of experience and service that they look for thereon.
No, so is it polite to still refer to them as senior travelers though? Pretty, because
Great
50 is
question.
not exactly senior, right? But
That's a great question. I like that question, Karen, because let's put it this way, right? So we never refer to them as senior travelers. So in fact, we've coined our own term for them, which is called Gen Great. Because at Great, we are like, beyond the gray lies great. That is our sort of mission and internal internal war cry, if I may say so, because not just because whether it's polite or impolite to say senior travelers or silver travelers, it's more coming from the fact that the attitude, the ambitions, the mindsets of this cohort of people who are today, say 50 to 70, or the people who are coming into it, is very different. They don't think of themselves as necessarily silver or senior.
Yeah, yeah.
They are looking at this phase of life with a lot of vigor, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of anticipation, because they see it as a phase of life to sort of maximize, not pull back, which is the mental picture for a lot of people, right? So when we say 50 plus, a lot of people are like, oh, it's for my mom, it's for my dad. I said, I don't know your age, but actually for me, it's not for my mom. It's for me in 3 years. I'm 47 and I'm going to be there pretty soon on the other side of 50, right?
Me too, me too.
So I mean, senior travelers, silver travelers, is all terms that are being used. They do have their place because it's easy to sort of, maybe make a mental picture,
Visualize,
but at the
yeah, yeah.
same time, it could also end up making a wrong
Right, right. A
mental
stereotype, a
picture,
wrong
of
stereotype.
who
Yeah,
this is.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Well, there are studies that show, continued financial independence of consumers in that age bracket of 50 to 70. And I know because I've been writing also about multi-generation travel and wellness travel, where these are big markets for
Yeah.
the tourism institutions. And they happily splurge on trips with grandchildren as well. So that shows they've got the money, right? But so why is the industry, the travel marketplace neglecting the needs of this segment then?
I mean, it's a question that we have asked ourselves ever since we conceptualized Great. I think I'll give you a few different perspectives on this, Karen, because we've heard different things from people in the industry, but also all the work that we do. I think first it is a case not so much of neglect, but of misunderstanding who these people are. So I think there are a lot of myths that have carried forward from, earlier versions of this generation that are still stuck with all of us. And that's why we are not, as an industry, as a travel industry or any other industry, really building for them in the way that we should. I think the first one is who they are. Like I said, I think the perception of senior travel is it'll be quieter, it'll be more relaxed. They prefer to go in tour groups. They are not doing free and independent travel. They are not the decision makers, which all of these points are not true of who the 50 plus traveler is today, right? It probably hasn't been true for the last few years already. So I think first it's that it's more a case of misunderstanding, and if you've not understood the consumer that is of discussion here, then of course you're not thinking of what can you do to cater to them or to provide for them or to make it a delight for them, right? In terms of experience. I think the second thing that happens, and this is a little bit controversial, is that the whole accessibility tag becomes a very lazy catch on, right? Because it's very easy to put a wheelchair symbol or put an accessibility feature somewhere in your write up, whether you're a hotel or you're a tourist site or whatever that might be. And then you're like, that with that, I have catered for the senior traveler. But that is not true either. Because the senior traveler, gen grade traveler, 50 over 50s traveler, whatever we might refer to them as, their needs are as complex and layered as any other segment. So just by check marking one thing, which a lot of providers already have, right? So it's an easy check mark to make. Then you're not taking the time to delve into saying, what does this consumer really, really want? And therefore, am I ready for it? Even if you're ready for it, maybe you're not talking about it because you're not thinking from the perspective of that user, that consumer, that traveler. I think the third thing that is happening is, and this is across all sorts of industry verticals, not just in travel, there is a massive urgency to court the Gen Z consumer. As there was a massive urgency to court the millennial consumer a few years ago, right? Because the logic is, oh, they are the up and coming consumer. You make them a consumer today, they'll be your loyal consumer 6 years later, 10 years later, so on and so forth. And maybe some of that has some merit in it, though most research shows that Gen Z is not as brand loyal at all. So, brands are going to struggle to be able to get that loyalty from them. But never mind that. But in this flurry, I think there is an oversight of who's paying the bills today and who has the economic depth as well as disposable income to be spending in a value manner way more on travel than Gen Z for the next couple of decades, actually.
Mm, mhm,
So I feel like the why people are not creating for them is coming from a combination of these factors, you know. But I keep talking about a very strange analogy, which is this will come upon you before you know it. That's where I feel like that's where the industry and the travel world is poised right now. Actually, the reality is upon us already. So in the next few years, we'll start seeing the sort of scramble to figure this out. But the brands who would have, done some work on it earlier will already be ahead of
mm,
the race now.
mm, mm.
That's how I see this playing out.
Okay, okay. Now, TTG Asia has reported on great efforts to close this gap in travel services for the
That's
over
right.
50s using the Great Score and most recently the Great 50 hotel rankings. Can you tell us, how different these two systems are and how they complement each other?
Sure, sure. So Great Score is at the backbone, Karen, of everything that we provide at Great.ai to our travelers. The Great Score is a single point score, which on our platform, when the consumer is making choices, it's a single point score, but it is also a dynamic score, which means that the Great Score for, say, the hotels that I want to stay in Bangkok are different for me and will be different for you and will be different for, say, another 65-year-old traveler who has picked different preferences. Because that's how our platform experience works. The discovery works by first saying what matters to me and matters not at a very high and vague level, but at a very detailed level. So I, for example, as a traveler or another traveler, can come to Great.ai and say, in my hotel stay, I care about pillow choices. Like pillow menu is a thing that I care about. Valet parking is something that I care about. Or something even more detailed, I want to see a vegan menu, for example, where I stay. So the consumer, the traveler can pick at a very greater level of detail in terms of what really matters to them, whether it's in a hotel stay or in the places they go to. So, like places they visit, they could say, I wanted to have easy temperature control. Or
Mm,
they could say, I wanted to be easily connected by public transport and not have too much walking, for example. So they can select at that level. So, therefore, after that, any travel choice or recommendation that they see through Great.ai is great scored and great scored based on the preferences that they have picked. So, it's a
mm,
dynamic, personalized score on the platform.
mhm,
But for us to be able to enable that for the consumer, we first audit a whole bunch of things. We've done 28,000 hotels across Asia Pacific. There's about 63 APAC destinations.
mhm,
And we've also audited 3,000 tourist sites across the same 63 destinations.
mhm,
So the audit process allows us to evaluate all of these, whether it's a hotel or a tourist site, through about 50 odd dimensions. And that audit delivers what we call the great score as an index score.
mm,
And that is the score that is driving the top 50 lists in the great 50. So
mhm,
I would think of it as the Great 50 list, and what is driving that is a very in-depth audit at that point in time. And it's always going to be time bound because we will keep revisiting and there'll be movement, right? Because some people will do better on some counts, some people may not, so on and so forth. And the great score on the site is a personalized dynamic score so that anything that the consumer sees, they know how fit for them it is. So it's in principle they are the same, but in how they work differently. But both
mm,
are built around how can we measure whether a hotel or a tourist site or an experience is fit for 50 plus.
Mhm. And these hotels can then look at the score and say, okay, so where we are lacking, we are lacking in this sort of
Absolutely.
services. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we will be able to, if hotels are interested, we can work with them to go a level deeper, look at where they won, where they didn't. We can even do a competitive analysis based on who they benchmark as competition, either in a destination or across a region, and say, here's where the gaps are showing up. And then there's the next level of analysis that say a hotel would do, which is saying, is this a communication issue that we need to fix? Are we not talking about it enough? Or do we really need to change our the way we have structured ourselves as a service and as a hotel?
Yeah, yeah, good point there, Priti. Because my next question is then, to ask you, do travel suppliers have to invest a lot of money to get the operations friendly for the over 50s, or is it, like you said, a matter of improving communication so that they can already convey what they have available for the older travelers?
Yeah, I think the way we see it at Great, Karen, there's actually a step even before that decision. And that step is the step of measurement, which is today most hotels are not measuring themselves on, are we fit for 50 plus? Like I said, they are probably measuring themselves up on accessibility. But that is a very small part of the larger picture. Like when we look at the data that we are seeing in how the consumer is choosing, safety, support, and accessibility is out of about 12 different things, the 10th in order of importance for them. What is actually important is easy transport options, human assistance, room comfort options, like some of the ones that we spoke about, like quiet rooms, relaxed areas within the hotel, so on and so forth, right? Or wellness programming, which goes beyond just having a gym or a spa, like, is there wellness programming in the hotel, so on and so forth. So I think, therefore, first step is the benchmarking of where you sit today. And what is that? Why is that benchmarking what it is, right? So, say on a Great 50 list, a hotel is at 87, 88.8, for example. What is contributing positively to that 88.8 and what is not? I think once people know that is when they can decide, okay, maybe some of these points where we are not quite hitting the standard are solvable by communication, because we actually do have the proof points for it, or it needs to be solved by changing infrastructure. And then, of course, it's a business process, right, of saying which part of the infrastructure will give us the ROI we want. They'll go through it as any other business would, saying, will the impact of this be high? We can also help them understand that actually through the next level deep dive into the great score, because we are already seeing what impacts consumer choice the most. So that can also be a very good way for businesses to decide, saying, if I put X dollars of investment in this, it will give me the best return because the consumer cares most about it, right? Because once you put on the consumer lens, then your decisions can be driven by what impacts them most and what delights them most as well, in particularly in the travel and hospitality industry. So I think it's not, I don't know whether I can give a straight answer of will it be a large investment or small investment. I think, but it certainly begins from saying, how do we understand first, benchmark first, find the gaps, and then do, a bit of work around what would be the best to invest into.
Okay, great. And that's all the questions I have for you, Priti. Thank you so much for your time. Past and future episodes of TTG Conversations 5 Questions can be found on the TTG YouTube channel. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.